Hi guys, and welcome back to Chengi's World. Guys, it's so good to be back and sitting behind this chair and talking to you guys because I absolutely love it. The vlog life is good fun, but it's, sitting here and talking to you guys is what I'm about. Okay, so I know one of you guys asked if I should do get to know me video. By all means, guys, send me a message on Instagram and Facebook and ask me questions that you would like me to answer about myself, and I will do my best to answer them as honestly as possible. If I can't answer the questions, I will let you know I ain't about that life and I'm not about to answer that question. But I am more than happy to do a question and answer session with you guys, because I know sometimes it's so I share a lot though in my videos about myself, but I guess there might be a question or two that you guys have that I just haven't answered. So let's do that. Forgive me, I've got a bit of a cold. Well, I don't really have a cold. I'm sort of recovering or fighting one. But anyway, here we are. And what did I want to talk about? The number one relationship killer, hands down, no contest, totally, absolutely the number one relationship killer is boom, 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 communication. It's so funny to me that we are able to communicate effectively enough in our jobs, with our children, with our friends, but for some reason when we get into the dating romantic relationship, we just expect the other person to read our minds, right? We like all of a sudden, because we have this relationship with this person, we start to think that this person must somehow be able to read our minds. They must know the things we like, the things we don't like, the behavior that's acceptable, the behavior that's not acceptable. In any other situation, any other circumstances, you would be 100% clear. And so I found that a lot of things when I deal with a lot of couples, and even as I go through my own dating experiences, I find that where most people are weak is when it comes to communication. We find it hard to communicate and say the things we truly want and the things that we're afraid of, the things that we're not ready for, because we're perpetually afraid of losing the other person. We're perpetually harboring the fear of losing somebody. But unless you are prepared to lose somebody, unless you are prepared to do without them, you will never truly win. You will tell them what they want to hear, or you will not tell them. Sometimes what is most dangerous is the things that we don't say. I met somebody once and we had a very, very honest conversation. And it had to do with the dynamic of our relationship. And I'm really one of those people who's very sort of, I see miles ahead of I have this ability to sort of see from how a relationship starts to pretty much what will end it or what the challenge will be in that relationship. But I've actually never met anyone who is quite like me, who before they embark on the relationship have already assessed where they're going to go. So it was a very, very, very refreshing conversation for somebody like me, because I just like things out on the table. I like to look at the risks. I like to look at the road, and I like to be able to have that conversation. And so we're talking about this dynamic in our relationship and how it would work for the first couple of years, and then perhaps we would hit a bit of a wall, because ongoing it would become a lot more challenging. But at the end of the day, the conversation was had of, okay, in that case, why don't we work on what we do have? Why don't we explore today and sort of leave tomorrow to deal with itself, with the understanding and the full knowledge that tomorrow will come and we will hit that brick when we get to it. But at least we're both aware of that obstacle and that tomorrow. And that was extremely refreshing, because it meant that we could walk into this journey completely aware. And he said something to me. He said, you know what, Chengi, some guys will know about this obstacle, they'll be aware of it, but they just won't say anything because that's their get out clause. That's their that's how they're gonna get out once they've had what they want. And obviously I had to but respect this guy for being 100 with me, because actually he was saying, look, I'm not going to use this get out clause. When it comes, we will deal with it. It might be my get out clause, but at least you're walking in with your eyes wide open. Very few men are prepared to do this, but one of the things I found is that you have to be prepared to have the real talk conversation first. It's not about expecting the other person to be real with you. It's about you being real with yourself and saying, look, this is who I am. This is what I require in order for me to be happy in a relationship. Write it down. I call it my contract. I call it in order for a man to be in my life in a relationship, he's got to sign my contract, especially if he wants that relationship to take on a sexual element, and there isn't a ring on the table, then he definitely needs to sign my contract. There are terms and conditions that go with being in a relationship with me. And the sooner, we don't feel any kind of way about signing a contract before we start a job. We feel no kind of way, because that contract outlines to us the expectations of that job. That contract outlines to us the holidays we can have in that job. That contract outlines the get out clause to that contract. It outlines a few things. It outlines all of the changes that we can expect, and we're confident. We sign on the dotted line because we know our boss's expectation. We know what we're bringing to the table. We know the skills that we're putting together, and therefore, and we know at what point and how long we give this amount of notice if we've had enough, and this is how we do it in writing, blah 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 blah. And it protects that professional relationship. With our children is pretty much the same, except there isn't a contract. There's an understanding, because by virtue of us being parents, being the older person, and they being in need of us, that dynamic is usually sorted. And as a parent, you would say, none of this, no to that, da 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 da. You set the rules out for how that child is going to live in your home. In every other, even in our friendships, we're very honest, we're very open. I don't really like when people do this, and I don't like, and we sort of let it out there. But when it comes to relationships, we're not prepared to do it. If you are not prepared to communicate openly and honestly, and I'm talking about from the first day of dating to the last, to marriage. Marriages break down because of lack of communication, because two people don't know how to address each other. They don't know how to talk to each other. They don't know the phrases to use. They don't have the right language to use, because we just assume that we know how to communicate. If I'm speaking in English and you're speaking English, or we should be able to understand one another. But understanding is something that happens at a much deeper level. And like every contract, sometimes you need a third party, especially when you're married, to be the translator between you two, because evolution and changes are going on in that relationship, and twists and turns. So if you watch my video about relationship shifts, that will tell you that every relationship goes through a subtle shift. And at those shifts, you need somebody to help you communicate what is going on with you. Don't be afraid to ask for third-party intervention, especially if you're married. I believe that marriages need to go through counseling at least twice a year, every year. You need that opportunity to share what is going on in your marriage, the situation, so somebody can stamp it out and deal with it and address it quite quickly. So the number one relationship killer is our inability and our unwillingness to be transparent in our communication. And that is rooted from fear. And also our inconsistency with communication, especially in the dating phases. One of the things that really, really ruins and sabotages the dating phase of a relationship is usually one person's inability to commit to a consistent dialogue with somebody else. You have to commit to a consistent dialogue. You have to be committed, which means there will be distractions. There will be things that are happening outside of you. There will be things that are happening around you. But you have to be committed, that despite and in spite of my commitment, I am committed to communicating with you consistently. You know, if you're in a dating phase or in any other phase in your life, you must be committed. If that relationship stands a chance of surviving, you need to be committed to consistent communication. Consistent is key. Commitment, consistent communication. The number 3 things. Be committed, especially men. Men are less committed. They're not willing so much to commit to being consistent. If somebody is not communicating with you in a consistent way, then that relationship is going down the drain and it's going to happen very quickly, because the lack of communication are like dark places. And wherever there is a vacuum, something usually fills it. My pastor used to say, the earth hates vacuums, which means whenever there's a vacuum, something else will get in there. Thoughts will get in there, doubts will get in there, fear will get in there, second thoughts will get in there. And so if you are looking to be sure to keep a relationship strong, or definitely to establish a relationship from nothing to something, then you have to be committed to a consistent stream of communication. You must talk, you must share, you must talk and share every single day. You must be consistent. You must be consistent in your method of communication. That is how a bond is built. That is how a relationship is established. And that is how a relationship is kept burning through all of life's processes. So the number 1 relationship killer is a lack of communication, a lack of consistent communication, a lack of a commitment to communicate. Communication is key to a healthy, long-lasting, happy relationship. See you guys soon. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye now.